A new House of Commons Speaker will soon be elected after current Speaker Anthony Rota announced that he will step down. Now, this comes after MPs from all sides called on Mr. Rota to resign. Now, this for inviting to the House and recognizing a Ukrainian military veteran who served in a Nazi unit during the Second World War. Only two speakers elected since Confederation have left partway through a parliamentary session. Now, this includes one who died and the other who was named Governor General. Joining us now to discuss the scandal and the resignation of Speaker Rota is Mr. Anthony Koch, principal at AK Strategies. Mr. Koch, thanks again for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
So can you give us a better understanding of who this World War II veteran, Mr. Hunka, was, and the Nazi unit that he served in during the war?
Precisely. And thank you for calling it a Nazi unit, not a Nazi-affiliated unit, Nazi-associated unit. So he served in something that's called the 14th SS Division. It was a Grenadier Division, also commonly referred to as the 1st Galicians. Okay, so this was a volunteer unit, and that can't be stressed enough. It's a volunteer unit that was a full part of the Waffen-SS, which is the elite paramilitary portion of the Nazi German military. Anybody who joined this unit was not conscripted into it. This is something that you volunteered to do, and you actually, as part of the process, swore a personal oath to Adolf Hitler. There's plenty of people throughout the war in various occupied countries that were forced in one way or another to support the Nazi war machine, whether that was in the form of forced labor or that was in the form of military service. This unit is not one of those cases. These were diehards. These were true believers. Yes, I'm aware that there's context in that situation, but the guy's a Nazi, point final. He even had a blog post that was surfaced when people did some basic Googling, like a lot of conservatives had suggested, where he referred to this time period in his life as the best of all the years that he had lived. So we're not talking with some poor Ukrainian who found himself in a difficult situation. This is a full-blown Nazi.
Some very concerning details here, sir. Now, in terms of how this invite came out, are there any indications that this involved anyone other than Mr. Rota?
So this is the thing. There's the official protocol, which is what they're sticking to. And then there's what we know to how these events actually transpire in reality. So the amount of times that a foreign head of state, especially a foreign head of state who is currently leading a country that is being invaded by an authoritarian regime that has it as its explicit, goal to conquer and potentially even assassinate Mr. Zelensky. So the way it actually transpired, is what we've learned so far, is that the grandson of the individual in question, who is a resident of Mr. Rota, the now former Speaker of the House of Commons riding, submitted a request saying that his father had served and that he would ask to be invited. Now, here's the thing. In theory, correct. Does the Speaker have the discretion? Do parliamentarians have the discretion to issue these kinds of invites? Sure. But this wasn't just an ordinary day in the House of Commons. And the individual in question also wasn't just there to watch. He received a specific shout out from the floor of the House of Commons and received 2 standing ovations from the entirety of the parliamentary delegation from both sides. This is the kind of thing that under normal circumstances, especially with a very important event like this, Mr. Zelensky's visit, that PMO would have vetted, or should have vetted, I guess you should say. Because to avoid exactly something like this. So again, in theory, is what they're saying correct? Potentially. But based on what anybody who's ever worked in politics can tell you, an event of this importance, of this magnitude, the level of vetting that usually goes into this is several degrees more intense than just your run-of-the-mill House of Commons performance. And if the Liberals didn't go through this vetting, they want to go with that, then it's a sign of pure and utter incompetence instead of maliciousness.
And as a Jewish Canadian yourself, what does the scandal mean for you and the Jewish community overall?
Yeah, well, one of the things that was in particularly egregious as far as I'm concerned is there was actually, a significant number of Jewish Canadians in attendance at that event, also standing and unbeknownstly, giving applause to somebody that was a part of the Waffen-SS. The thing that's been very disappointing, I can say as a Jewish Canadian, is the fact that, and CJ made a call for this, the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, and I know they recently put out a statement saying that the apology was sufficient. But what frustrated me with the way the Prime Minister responded to this, Speaker Rota obviously had to go, and I'm glad that happened. I don't think he's a Nazi, but some mistakes, heads have to roll, and unfortunately, you're the guy who issued the invite. But the fact that the Prime Minister came out today and once again could not say, I'm the Prime Minister, I'm the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada, the buck stops with me. Instead, like always, it's this collective apology on behalf of the entirety of Parliament. And of course, that famous line about how we, not them, not him, but all of us, need to use this as a learning moment and a learning opportunity moving forward. I think it's thoroughly inadequate. Leaders lead, they take responsibility, the buck stops with them. I don't understand what's the big deal with just saying this was obviously a mistake. No one's suggesting Mr. Trudeau's an actual Nazi sympathizer, but you messed up, take responsibility for it, and apologize. Individually, yes, Parliament as well, but also you're the Prime Minister. I want to hear something from Mr. Trudeau specifically.